thing here. Okay, so welcome everyone to this panel discussion titled, How is Project Management Changing in Your Industry? And this is being moderated by Shawn Stevenson. This session is hosted by the Project Management Association of Canada and sponsored by IPMA USA, Procept Associates, and Title Shift. We will post links to our sponsors' websites in the chat window. During the live presentation, feel free to type any questions you have into the Q&A panel on the web interface. After the formal portion of the presentation, we'll read out your questions for the panelists to answer. This presentation is also being recorded and will be posted later on YouTube for those who could not attend today. I'm going to turn things over to Shawn in a moment. He has been named one of the top 40 under 40 by CBC Saskatchewan. Shawn is a project manager, business analyst, and change manager who helps organizations through difficult transformations. Currently, he works in the Canadian government. Take it away, Shawn.
Thank you very much. It's great to meet everyone here. Thank you so much. My name is Shawn Stevenson, and I'm broadcasting here from out from the National Capital Region. I wanted to begin by acknowledging where this is a national panel that Canada sits on the traditional homelands of the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. And so may our tongues always speak the truth. And may our hands always be outstretched in love, and the path that we walk together always be one of healing and reconciliation. It's an honor, and to start out, as Winston Churchill said, to improve is to change, and to be perfect is to change often. Everybody in this industry is dealing with change at a rapid rate as we've gone through. And we're going to use this panel to have an in-depth conversation from experts from all over Canada and to dig deep into the change and to make it, and to hopefully have an engaging conversation about why things are changing, how they're changing, and how project managers out there in the world can adapt into that change. I'd like to begin by introducing the panelists, and they'll be given a 5-minute statement as they start and to talk about why things are changing and the change that they see in their own industry. We'll start with Ellie, who specializes in delivering complex IT projects for IBM. Our other panelist is Braden Johnson, who is a building science technical consultant, and Carroll Blair, who is a change leader who works in corporate and government environments. And our last panelist is Allan Nick, who works in the EV industry. I think that's right, Allan, right?
Yep.
Honored to have you. So what we'll do is we'll pass it over into Ellie first. And the question is, how have things changed over your career, and what changes do you forecast are going to take place in the future? And we'll start with Ellie.
Hey, thank you, Shawn. And I'm going to rephrase it to, I'm actually here representing myself as a consultant in the IT space. And thank you for that introduction.
My pleasure.
I'm really glad I jumped in right at the tail end of the last session, because it does bring me back to the day, to a statement that was made that PMPs back in the day, you knew you were getting an expert in our field. And I think back when I originally got into project management and IT, back in the day, I had to stay current every 2 years. Then it became a year when we hit the 2000s. And then it became 6 months. And I'm going to say today, it's getting down to days and weeks, and I'll tell you why. When we look at the landscape of the changes that we've seen over project management over the last, I'm going to say 2 to 5 years, We've seen a shift to agile and hybrid. So we are getting away more from the predictive traditional way of delivering. We know there's ways that we can incorporate the best of both worlds. We're also looking at a lot of digital transformations, whether it's commercial or government, because we are looking at how do we improve our space that we're in today with regards to understanding climate change, understanding the threats that we see hitting us in the future, as to how we can use technology to be prepared and ready. The other focus area, and this is the biggest one I'm going to say, and I've been monitoring this going back to 2018. Especially knowing that we didn't hear so much about AI back then, but I can tell you it's been on the horizon. It's been out there for a long time. Is this ChatGPT opened the door to all of us? And one of the things that as a common term, and I'm going to still say it, it's like when the pandemic hit us, right? We all said this is just unprecedented. Well, we've got another term that we're using a lot of all the time. AI will not take over your job. Those of us do not engage with AI, we are the ones that will be replaced by AI. But AI is not there to replace you unless you're not interacting with it. And so what is happening with Gen AI? And I bring you back to PMI's fantastic course on for project managers, very specific to our space on how to do prompt engineering with AI to manage your project, to look for risk, to be clear, concise, get those heuristics into our communications, which is most critical for us to be successful. We're juggling a lot of balls and things are becoming more complex. And so as I kind of close this out to pass it on to the next panelist group, we are more data driven. We've got tools to help us with all that big data to be able to do that analysis for us quickly. And not only that, we also have the capability to bring those soft skills, which is what is going to keep us in the game, because AI cannot be empathetic. I know people are thinking, well, we're getting there. Yes, we are, but we're not there. AI cannot read the room like we can as humans. And AI cannot have those difficult conversations necessarily looking at all the expertise when you sit back and look at how many years it's taken you to earn what you've learned on how to manage humans. Because our job is all about humans, and we are change agents bringing that change to people. Back to you, Shawn.
Thank you very much. And before we get into the next panelist, I'd like to pull a bit on that. You mentioned AI causing a lot of concern, a lot of anxiety maybe out there. Has a rate of change in your experience? Are people more anxious in 2024 about the change with AI and whatnot than they were in the past?
I'm going to say I'm starting to see it ease a little. It was really high when ChatGPT came out. And the reason why it's easing is we've got PMI showing us what the benefit and value is. We've got institutions implementing it. We see a lot of organizations corralling those smaller AI shops, pulling it all together. And there's one other big thing. AI uses a ton of resources. It is a powerhouse. We need to solve that problem before we can get to that exponential level that everybody's thinking AI is going to get to. And we're not there yet. We got tons of time to get there. So good call out on that one, Shawn. Thank you.
No worries. And we'll come back to you soon. On to Braden in Edmonton, Alberta. And again, sort of the questions, they were about the change that you've seen in your own career and what you see on the horizon.
Right. I believe I have 5 minutes for this. Hey, Shawn. So, okay, change. Ever present, something that we always have to deal with. There's a saying in projects and project management that no two projects are the same. So you're going to deal with new aspects of work and changes related to it. I think I'll take a different approach on this because we're looking at technology changes, kind of expectations from stakeholders, from clients, from our teams. But one thing that I noticed will not change is being able to make decisions, being able to interact with people and solve problems, being able to work effectively in teams, and being able to manage yourself in a very complex and changing environment. So we know that all these things around us, technology is going to evolve. These are all things that happen around people, though. At the end of the day, it's going to be up to individuals such as project managers who have responsibility and authority to make decisions on in the best behalf of the project and all the major stakeholders and clients that are involved in it. So what I would probably add is as a point to consider for this panel is the internal changes that we have to do to accommodate the changes in our external environments. So things like improving our soft skills, being able to read the room, being able to understand the risk profiles of our teams and our organizations. Some are going to be less risk averse, more conservative with regards to budgets and decisions. Some are going to be more risk seeking in terms of trying to get products and decisions and results out to market faster. So I think as PMs, we need to change ourselves to fit the environment and the context of the mission we're trying to accomplish. So what type of skills does this require? We have to have good communication. We have to have good interpersonal skills. We have to always be learning, right, from other people as well as from standards and best practices. We need to establish principles of how we work so that other people understand how we're going to get the job done and they can quickly align with the methods and procedures that we're using. We need to be very good at resolving conflicts in order to keep the team moving on track and on schedule. So developing those internal changes takes quite a bit of work, particularly if you don't have those attributes naturally gifted to you. It's something that you're going to have to work on a day-to-day basis. And you'll be able to increase those skills at school and informal environments, but really it's going to be trial by fire. You're going to have to kind of jump into the deep water. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to make errors. And the best thing to do is to learn from them. I find AI interesting because machine learning, it's this large database of collected information from mistakes and good decisions. But remember, we are our own kind of computer and machine ourselves. We're doing the exact same thing as AI. You experience, you learn, you grow, you change, and you get better. If you want to change faster, it's pretty simple. You just learn faster. One of those things that you can do too in terms of personal growth and learning is as soon as you make an error, you kind of establish a standard that this was the error that was made. Next time I go through this, I'm going to track A versus tracking B. Track B left me down a road that didn't get the best results. Track A left me down the road that got me better results. And then kind of have the courage to share that with the team and others so that you're not only improving yourself as a changing individual and project manager, but you're also enhancing the skills and abilities of everybody around you. So yeah, I took a little bit of a different approach on that question because I know we have changes all over the environment, but one thing that's going to stay consistent is you and yourself and how you manage and shift your ability to tackle those changes. And I think as long as you have that desire and interest to keep learning and keep growing, you're going to do very well in this field. You're going to probably excel to heights that you didn't anticipate you would. It's going to be difficult, but at the end result, you're going to turn out to be someone who can deliver results for clients and as well as for your team members. And that's it for me, Shawn.
Thank you very much. You said something really interesting about managing yourself in an increasing complex environment. Can you expand a little bit on the concept of managing yourself, of why project managers need to be really good managers of themselves?
Yeah, 100%. I think it was called out by Ellie there. Like project managers, we're looked at as leaders. We set the tone for how the project is going to be conducted and how people on the project are going to work. So if you don't have good self-control and self-management, team members around you are going to pick up that cue, and whether you like it or not, they're going to fall into the similar frame. So if you are a little bit chaotic with your decisions and approaches, your team is likely going to emulate those, because by default, as a project manager, you're looked at as a leader. So the first thing you got to check before anything else, before technology and AI and all this, you just got to check yourself and make sure you're square and you're on purpose and you're on track. You're 100% present, so that you're not easily moved off center when you're in groups of especially folks with different priorities and different expectations. You're the person who has to integrate and converge everything into a single path. So if you can't do that within yourself, good luck trying to do that in teams. And the only way you really get good at it is by putting yourself in difficult situations and coming out on top.
Well, as you're also an Army officer, so I'm sure you're no stranger into putting yourself in difficult situations. Thank you very much. On to Carroll. And the question again is to talk about the changes you've experienced in your career, and what do you see on the horizon?
Great. Thank you, Shawn. And hi, everybody. And welcome to all the participants who are in different time zones. My background is learning and development. So I'm an adult education, and I'm going to say a change practitioner. I've done lots of project management, although I don't have all the designations. Although I did recently get the change management practitioner designation, which really was a lot of work, I have to say. And it's great to put the names to things that we do. So I thought I'd start off with a quote. It seems very, very timely, from the Honorable Murray Sinclair, who just passed. And it sounds so simple, but if you let it resonate for a minute, doing what is urgent, one can miss what is important. And I think in this day and age of change and this and that and news cycles, that if it's always a rush to meet a milestone, it's always a rush to do this, that, and the other thing, that we may miss what's important. And I'm going to say something maybe rather radical, and I think that the people side of the world is what's important. And that is really what change management is. And that was, if I'm sure there's lots of people who can correct me, not least of which is Kevin, that's the piece that the PM was missing, both formally in process as well as in the management of people. And that's why change management has risen to the top. When I think about learning and development and projects, because most of the projects I've done in learning and development have meant big change. Something as simple as, which we might all go, oh, well, that's not so recent, rolling out e-learning, for instance, in organizations that never had e-learning, and people getting really, really upset. And I mean really upset. I had someone throw something at me in a meeting. Not the danger you face, Brandon, but you know what I'm saying. A real visceral response. But what we're talking about in change is we're talking about change in process, change in skills, and change in behavior. And all of that involves humans. And I was thinking about what Peter Milson said. So I've been trying to sit in on all of the presentations, and talking about, how important change was to adoption, to the integration and the adoption of a project. Well, what I would say is change has to come in at a very practical sense from day one. So whether it's the communication plan, whether it's the risk assessment, whether it's the the chart of who needs to know what, just like you would with a RASCI, I think change has to be integrated. And then the bottom line for me, you can tell I get a little bit passionate about this, is that change is about humans. So again, Brandon, I think you said this, and Ellie, you probably too, is we're talking about values. We're talking about values and morals. And if we say AI is going to take care of that for us, well, what values has AI been fed? So yeah, I'm very good at calendaring, very good at, sending out the invites and maybe doing the summation. The question is that summation caught the nuance of the people and what the people need? So without spending too much time on this, I would say probably the key skill for a project manager, for a change manager, and for assessing the participants, assessing the staff, those people who are feeling the change, is emotional intelligence. So that ability to deal with change, because we know our brains don't like change. We literally don't like change, even good change. What do you mean you moved it to the other side of the room? I've been going there for 15 years. It can't be over here now. So I'm a strong advocate for change management. And I think it's something that it's easier to integrate than we think, but it's also more important than we think.
Wonderful. You talked about values-based leadership, or or having a values-based approach or sort of vision in the organization. In your opinion, what is the mark of a values-based leader?
Wow. Okay. Well, I also want to point out that values are what people feel. So, for instance, when we talk about change, change in a lot of cases, again with the brain, is the same as loss. So, a lot of times people will say, it takes someone to pass, someone to die, literally, for us. But in change management, people are mourning things. They might be mourning the name of the business. They might be mourning the name of those managers who really, mentored them throughout, what have you. So if it's leadership based, then it's recognizing that all these people have feelings. And by the way, they're the reason you're successful because they've been working for you for 5, 10, however long. They might even be somebody new in the organization. So I think recognizing it, and I think the other piece about change management is the idea that perhaps the top of the house has been talking about this for 3 years, and they've had the consultant come in and they've got all the answers. But wait a minute, this is the first time everybody else, the one who's going to have to use the new software, the one who's going to have to, uh, integrate AI or run a machine that's run on electricity rather than gas, is hearing about it. So it's recognizing that they have an important role and that they need to be visible, of course. I don't know. Am I answering your question, Shawn?
Absolutely. I find it inspirational that you and everyone else who has spoken is mentioning the value of human beings, about this is a people profession, that it's not a technocratic role, although it certainly has elements, but the idea that the people are really important.
Well, we are we are humans on this earth. And personally, I don't want to become a robot or live on Mars. So
that may that might be a change that's a bit too much, for sure. Yeah. On to Allan. And again, the question is the changes you've seen in your own career and what you see on the horizon.
Thanks, Shawn. I am a technical manager, project manager, so I'll try to keep it as non-technical I can be. But yeah, so I work with automobiles. I work with large-scale trucks to compact SUVs and a lot of different things. I work with different powertrain configurations also. Let me just start with that. I work with battery electric vehicles, hybrid electric vehicles, normal gasoline engines, plug-in hybrids, everything. And my role currently involves advanced powertrain design, right? So I'm planning and I'm releasing vehicles that would be coming out in the year 2032, 2031, and it's way, way, way in the future. So these vehicles, they are subject to a lot of change because I'm in the advanced role, which is very preliminary. There's a lot of change. Let me give you an example. So right now, electric vehicles are the main focus point of the industry, automobile industry, right? And we all know that Tesla is kind of the leader in that, and all the other OEMs, they're playing catch up right now. We just want to be as good as Tesla, right? But the EV space, the components and a lot of these things, they're not yet completely fixed. So there's ongoing change in a lot of components that are already used in the BEV space. In addition to that, some of the main reasons for immediate change that is required by the management from the company, from the users, is economical and political, right? As you know, 2 days back, we know that there's a new president who's going to be coming in to the US. And because of that, in the automobile space, there might be changes that might come for the emissions requirement, and there might be EV mandates that might be removed or that it might be added. And just for information, so Canada uses or follows the same path that the US uses. So it's going to be pretty similar. All the emissions requirements, all the mandates that are being used in the US are going to be used in Canada. So because of this, what happens is I'll be working on a BEV for a year. I'll be designing the components. I'll be working with the wider team, trying to make sure everything's a go. Speaking with suppliers, negotiations, all those things. But when there's a sudden change like this, the management and the company comes and they say, okay, so BEVs are not the main thing that we need to focus on right now. The vehicle that you're currently preparing, make it a gasoline vehicle, it's nice internal combustion engine vehicle, or make it a hybrid electric vehicle, right? So the components are not shared between all those three configurations. So now I have to start from scratch from a BEV. I have to go for a HEV. HEV is basically a hybrid electric vehicle. So I have to start, gathering the components, the data, the TPC, all those things for these vehicles. And that is, as you know, working on a project and shelving it and then starting brand new. That's like a pain in the ass, right? So what happens is, I basically am ready for these changes that happen. That's what I do in my role. When they tell me, hey, I want you to do a BEV for this particular vehicle, I know the mindset of my management and what they will do. That's the first thing. It's very important to know what the management would do and what they need from you and how easily they change. It's good to anticipate any changes that comes your way, and that's going to happen only when we understand the management and our customer, basically. So what I do is, if they say you need to do a BEV, I compare the same, all the components for the ICE, internal combustion engines, hybrid electric vehicles, plug-in hybrids. I make a detailed comparison before I start any work on the BEV, battery electric vehicle. And then I have the TPCs, the components that I use, all those things. I do an initial study with all the configs and I have that ready. And then I start off with my regular project management activities for the project they asked me to do. Because of this, when they tell me to stop, hey, shelve this battery electric vehicle project, work on an hybrid, I know that I already have all the ingredients in place. I just have to take them, start cooking them again, and I'll have something ready soon. So what I'm trying to say is, in 2032, if they want a vehicle ready, and by 2028 they say, oh, we don't want that configuration, we want something different, I can easily start doing that. And that comes by preparation. I know Braden just he did touch on the topic of understanding the management, right? Try to understand your company, try to understand the customer so that you are prepared for everything that comes your way. And I think in the automobile space, that's something that every company is dealing with. We have new technologies coming in. We now have something called range extended electric vehicle that Chevrolet's just released. So new technologies are evolving and companies want to adapt, and it is very, very, very fast paced. Whatever I was working on last week might not be the one that I'll be working on this week. So always be prepared and never be taken off guard by whatever change that happens. That's what I'd say, Shawn.
So if I could pull at that, you work in an industry that did not exist 20 years ago.
Exactly.
What capability as a project manager do you have to fit in a space that's brand new?
Right. I understand. Number one, make yourself knowledgeable on. Of course, this is a bit technical role, right? So you need to understand the basics of what is happening. And one thing that I'd always encourage is never be scared or never be afraid to ask a question in a wider forum. I see a lot of project managers in my company and in a lot of other companies, right? Because they don't know the subject completely, they tend to stay quiet, right? And they don't challenge any decisions, even if it's a dumb question. Just shoot it out, right? And that way we learn and we can move forward. As you know, like you said, like Bev did not exist. It was very, very recent. Bev became mainstream after Tesla was formed, and it was brand new for everybody, right? And as a project manager, it's even more daunting because you're not as technically, adept at vehicle configurations or components as much as the engineers are. But learn them. Don't be afraid. Speak up, learn, and always be ready for change.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're a little bit over time, so we'll get right to the questions into the panelists and before we ask the audience in for questions. My question is this. We're 4 years maybe, past a pandemic that changed the way that we work in a major way. Do you feel that moment with COVID-19 has changed how project managers operate out there? You're shaking your head, Braden. Is there a comment there?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Probably the obvious one is just the introduction of virtual workspaces. That's number one. And then realizing that we can do a lot of our work remotely. So that's kind of expanded the capability, especially for making decisions. We don't always need to physically be in the same location to make a decision.
Right.
So whether it's regionally or globally, kind of that really pushed the decision-making barriers on proximity requirements for people to work. The next one too, I would say what changed, especially for PMs, is how quickly priorities for stakeholders and clients can change. I mean, as soon as COVID hit, it's the mantra was on time and on budget. And then when time was thrown out the window, then it was all about it must be delivered with a high quality level and value, because the supply chain got all rearranged and upside down. So clients kind of accepted the fact that they're not going to get it when they want it. But if project managers and teams are given ample runway to produce a deliverable, the expectation is that it's going to be absolutely perfect. So I think the shifting in priorities and expectations from one day to another was another impact of C19 that I experienced, and I think a lot of my colleagues in the industry experienced as well.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for your contribution. Ellie, how have virtual teams changed the way that you work? How is working virtually? How has it changed the dynamic on your teams, and how do you manage that change?
I'm going to say this is an interesting question for me, Shawn, because I'm going to take you back to the day when we were all remote.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to say, as a consultant, I'm going from place to place to place, and my team is global.
Right.
So it wasn't something that was, I mean, it depends on the industry you're in and where you're coming from. So for me, it was something that I've already experienced, but better. What was better, I didn't have to hold a phone like this for 8 hours
Right. Right.
and not hear and not see people. But I learned a technique because I couldn't see people. And as project managers, we need to read that room. Well, how can I read it if I can't see you? Tone and pitch. And that's what we call global listening.
Right.
So when we think of listening skills, and we touched on it in the panelist group, Carroll and Braden had mentioned it, we're looking at those emotional intelligence skills that we need, that self-awareness. So I know how I'm showing up. But I also need to, and PMI is doing a fantastic job at this, bringing in all of those soft skills. I like to call them human skills, and getting beyond the active listening, listening to understand, to global listening. I'm going to take the tone of your voice, the pitch of your voice. I'm going to listen to the words that you use. I'm going to watch your body language, your facial expressions. Just as you did when you saw Braden shaking his head. That's what we do as PMs. We're always observing what's happening around us. So when we are remote, we need to pick up on those, since those human feelings that people are going through, and we can with global listening, using our coaching skills. PMI is doing another fantastic job recognizing coaching and mentoring are critical skills we need to bring. It's not just about telling people about our experience and how we did it. Coaching is a better approach because coaching allows us to allow that individual to determine what is the right answer or solution. I don't know. You know better. You're closer to it than me. I'm just here to help guide you to it. So when I look at where we are remote now, I'm really happy to see that PMI stayed up and evolved our profession to put in all of those management, human, soft skills that we must continue to develop and evolve ourselves in order to be at the best and help our team to be at their best. As Braden said it, how we show up is going to emanate to how the team shows up.
Well said. That was spoken like a leader. I appreciate it. One more question in before we go into the Q&A, and I will limit this into a couple minutes, so it's not rude if I cut you off. I'm just trying to keep you on time. It's not personal. With the change out there, whether if it's with global work, brand new industries, AI, climate change, remote work, these sorts of things, has it become more difficult or less difficult to manage change in your teams than it was a few years ago?
Yeah, I think I can get started with that. So in the automobile industry, Shawn, it is easier for me to manage any changes that might come my way. But what is difficult is to get a hold of people because it is virtual, right? Uh, Before COVID, it was all in office, right? In-house. So what happened is if I need some information from somebody, I just walk up to their desk, I sit down, we have a chat and we get it done. But right now, if you see everybody's calendar, it's like completely filled, right? And now I have to find time for someone. I have to, if I need an information today, I might not get it today. I need to wait 2 more days for their calendar to free up and then get that information, right? So that is something that's difficult. But other than that, managing changes, once you get that data, to publish it, to manage it, to set up calls with everybody, and just get it done quickly. That has been way easier now, in my opinion.
Awesome. Alana, we'll give it to you for the Q&A from the audience.
Okay, we currently have no questions, but just a reminder to the audience, you can type your questions into the Q&A panel and we can answer them for you. We'll just give a couple moments here.
When I did answer one question.
Yeah,
I'd be
okay, I
happy
see
to
that. Yeah,
expand on
sorry.
it.
Yeah, I'll throw it out there for all of you. So Suzanne asked, do you find that the many times organizational leadership will pay lip service to the need for project or change management discipline, but actually do not believe in the value of either, and they are just checking a box? How do you think we as project, program, and change managers can help to change these attitudes?
I'd be happy to expand on what I mean when I talk about the entrepreneurial mindset. This was a concept that came to us because just as you had identified, I will say that's how our project managers were perceived, where I was, I'm going to say, back in the day, another life. And what we did is we shifted the mindset of our project management teams to think like an entrepreneur, a new business owner. How would you run your own business? When I set up a meeting and I've got 10 people in that room, I'm going to have to increase my dollar number on this, but I put $100 in everybody's pocket. That doesn't necessarily mean they cost $100. They could cost more or less. But I ask myself, is this meeting worth that much time and money? The next thing I'm going to ask myself, how efficient can I be? Because just as Allan said, people are busy, busier than they've ever been. So what efficiencies can I put into place to ensure and recognize that my stakeholders have a lot on the go? Which meetings and my team, which meetings are necessary, or can I use other tools, collaborative tools, to get those messages across? As project managers, we're required to understand the method and mode that is most critical and appropriate for the type of communications we're doing. This is how we bring value. With one last point is the benefits. What was the benefits realization that we are supposed to be aware of based on that benefits management plan that project is delivering? Are we helping our sponsor and our stakeholders recognize decisions that they're making if they're bringing risk to achieving those benefits? Are we highlighting for them that we understand those benefits? And are we also supporting them once we close down that project and hand over those benefit metrics for them to track to? Have we set them up for success? And so I bring it back to, this is how we bring that value. Understanding that strategic landscape, having that North Star for the team, being efficient in our way of managing people's time, and taking it from I own this business is mine, it's my money, it's coming out of my budget. Do I need to spend it there? And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Wonderful. Is there another question, Elena?
There is not, but did anybody else want to add anything to that last question?
Alana, I'm happy to add on to that. I think you were going back to how does the senior leadership see the value? How do we include them so that they invest in project management, change management? Did I have that right? And I think having them in at the ground floor, so going back to traditional project management, who is the sponsor and what is the role of the sponsor? What's the visibility of the sponsor? So it's also the flow of information. Are we telling them every last thing and dotting every I? No, absolutely not, right? So it's the feeding of the amount of information at the right time and always celebrating wins. I mean, on the flip side, you can show them all the information that well-managed projects come out ahead of budget and adoption is greater and staff are happier and what have you. But I think ultimately knowing the culture you're going into and who are those key people that will help you navigate and also be the face of the change.
Thanks, Carol. We do have another question from Eduardo. He asks, how do you foresee cybersecurity risks impacting the near future?
I don't know. I get fake email every single day. So do we need AI to weed out the AI that's a scam?
With cybersecurity, maybe I'll pull on that a bit more. Is it tough to manage your teams with hard rules? That this is a regulatory, often inside organizations that the things to keep systems a lot more secure than they used to be, involves inconveniencing people. From time to time, rather, if it's ensuring that you can't use a USB drive anymore, is a great example. How do you communicate that as a project manager when when there's no flexibility, in the rules that you have to implement for cybersecurity? How do you lead it, and how do you communicate it? Anybody?
Kind of going through that now, I will say, Shawn, and we have been actually for the last couple of years, and that cybersecurity is a serious thing, and we need to keep ahead of these bad actors, and it's very challenging. Now you've got the onset of AI. We're seeing AI being used to send misinformation, disinformation. We're seeing AI give bad actors the opportunity to globally, doesn't matter where we are in the world, impact us. And so when we sit back and think of cybersecurity, it starts with the user. That's why always October is Security Awareness Month, because we need to keep up with these unique ways they are getting us to tap into, getting pulled into the challenges that cybersecurity brings to us. It is the behavioral engineering factor of cybersecurity, understanding humans' reactions and instincts and direction on the approach they will take, in knowing that, oh, you just gave them something really sweet to click on because it's especially something urgent that you want them to do. And so, and I'm just throwing out little examples here and there. What I think is most important is we have to, I'm going to say security awareness should go beyond 1 month a year. We should have security awareness on a regular basis. And I'm glad to see we've got organizations, not just IT, but we've got the companies, the banking companies, right? The telephone companies, everybody's getting in on it to teach us what to look out for. We will never ask for this information or that information. And that's where I see, Shawn, we need to continue to go, but it needs to be more on a regular basis. You know, that whole repeatable thing process, say it 3 times, we will remember. We need to keep doing this over and over again. And that's my perspective.
Wonderful. Wonderful. It's certainly a large change that's coming, that's for sure. Are there any other questions, Lana, or?
No, we appear to be done with the questions. So I think we can wrap up. So thank you, Shawn, Ellie, Braden, Carroll, and Allan for the fantastic discussion.